An early look at the top 12 running backs for 2024 right now on Fantasy Football Today in 5. And what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Adam and Jamie here talking top 12 running backs, and Jamie compiled the article, so you know kind of what everybody was thinking. And there was certainly a consensus. The top 2 were the same. Everybody had McCaffrey, Hall, but the top 6 were the same in some order, right?
Yes, it was Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams. I think only one of the 7 of us had Kyron at 7. I believe it was Chris Towers, had Devon Achane at 6. But if you listen to our full length episode, you know that Dave and Heath have already changed their rankings in the last couple of weeks. So I would not be surprised if there's been some changes following the couple of playoff games that we've already seen or the playoff game that we've seen from a few of those running backs already.
Yeah, I want to take a look right now, just to thinking about this on the fly, because my general thought on running back doing the top 12 list was, especially at the end. I don't know. I mean, I think you feel a little bit differently, but I didn't feel guys like James Cook, maybe Rashad White. I didn't have Kamara in there. I don't think you did either. Some of the guys at the back end, maybe Pacheco, they didn't really feel like top 24 overall players for me. They didn't really feel like they felt like guys that I would have liked in the 3rd round. So I didn't really like the back end of the top 12 at running back. And then you got like 2 of the guys that are in the top 8 for everybody, Jameer Gibbs and Devon Achane. Very exciting second-year players next year. They might not even lead their team in carries, so that's unusual for top 8 running backs. So didn't love it. But what were your overall thoughts on that position?
Well, I mean, I think you could certainly point out the flaws, and that's why the position is, not as dominant as it has been in the last couple of years. I mean, think about some of the running backs we were drafting this year that fell off, to whatever degree. And the concerns that we had as high as the guy who was being drafted 2nd overall with Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Jacobs, Taylor, Barkley, all these guys that had issues coming into the season, whether due to contract or injury or age. We're seeing some younger guys, but they haven't exactly proven themselves yet. And I saw some people in the chat, for example, mentioning James Conner. We brought up that one, and he's still in this relatively in his prime, toward the end of his prime, but coming off a good year. Heath initially, or I think still does, has Alvin Kamara in his rankings. For playing 13 games and finishing 2nd in receptions, he can still do that and be a very solid PPR option that you might want to consider as a back end of the top 12 type of guy. Tyjae Spears, for example, could be special talent in Tennessee, but I don't think anybody's going to put him in the top 12. But I think in terms of where we're at with the position, it's, and Heath said this, hero RB is certainly something to consider because you get one of these top 8 running backs, per se. And then you're looking at, okay, what do I do starting in maybe rounds 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, however you want to approach it. There still should be some good options there for you, but I don't think they present some of the same upside. So yes, James Cook has flaws, but upside. Rashad White has flaws, but upside. And that's why, for me at least, I'm comfortable with them in the top 12. I would prefer not to draft them in round 2 either, but you may have to depending on how the receiver run goes early in your draft.
Yeah, so it's a big time changing of the guard. I mean, you think about the players who are being drafted top 12. You mentioned some of them, but Eckler, Saquon, who still I think could be a top 12 running back, but not necessarily. Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson last year. Joe Mixon was being drafted in the top 12. So we've aged out. A lot of these running backs are just older, not as good. It's just an interesting year with new faces in the top 12. I do want to ask you about Devon Achane and him being, I think, a top 8 running back for everybody. But, we're seeing there are obvious concerns there. But you think he'll be a top 20 overall pick? Top 18?
I do. The 2nd running back, if you will, in Miami will be the telling point. And when I say second guy, Raheem Mostert could still be the starter if he returns. But, he'll be 32 years old. He survived the seasons for the most part. Really, for the last 2 seasons, he's played 15-plus games. But you saw what happened at the end of the season, and there's talk maybe of some offseason surgery. But for a guy at his age, you got to be concerned. And I think if there is an aging guy like that, then you should like that for Achane. So he may not be drafted that high because of the concerns, but that just makes his value that much better for what he can be, because you saw the 2 games at the end of the season against Buffalo and Baltimore, clearly 2 good defenses. Mm-hmm. He was fairly successful in both those games as the lead guy, with certainly more to offer. So you're banking on upside, and he's got as much upside as anybody on the board.
All right, if you want to hear all about our top 12, where Rashad White, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook. Where did they end up in the top 12? Check out the full-length episode of Fantasy Football Today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on FFT in 5.